Rage quit? Never. Dad quit? Not an option. Welcome to Nerd Rage.
How's it going, YouTube? Just kind of wanted to make a video on the Edge of Fate gearing system. So as you can see, my current power is 383. Trying to grind my way towards the 400 soft cap, hard cap, time gated cap, whatever you want to call it. But I kind of have some serious thoughts on how Bungie is handling gearing this season. There, from 10 to 200, I ran the legendary campaign on all three of my characters because I wanted to get a hold of all of the exotics that we have. I wanted to make sure that I had the exotics in case, they turned out to be really good. That was kind of the main point of doing all three characters. Along the way, during, going through the legendary campaign, you actually get quite a lot of decent gear to get to 200 fairly quickly. And I will credit Bungie to say that from 0 to 200, you can do literally anything. I chose to do the campaign, but you could literally do anything, and you'll get upgrades to 200. And then from 200 beyond, it kind of starts to fall apart, and you start to see a trend. So from 200 to 300, after doing the legendary campaign, I started doing other things. I did the Fabled campaign afterwards on my Titan to get that achievement, get that going. I also farmed a ridiculous amount of Kel's Fall to get up to approximately 300. And then after that, you start going in the portal activities, and you're looking at, changing the way that you're doing the various different grinding systems and adding modifiers to make it more difficult. And Kel's Fall just became, at the time with the gear level that I had, more difficult than it was worth. And so after about 300, I started running a lot of Caldera, which is what I'm currently using in the background. And the reason for that is just the time invested and the effort needed to complete the activity, along with the rewards. I showed on another video, the reason for getting an A is so that you get higher tier rewards. And it can tremendously slow down your grind if you are, clearing things at a C level or a B level. That can add hours and days to your grind. Whereas if you go for that A tier, you can, get there faster. And so why does this grind feel bad? Well, Bungie wanted everybody to kind of, go and use, different builds. They talked about, having the various different build diversity. And unfortunately, this new system with the portal forces you to use new gear. You don't have an option. And I think that's a really bad design, honestly. Like, I get wanting, to use the new stuff, and it's fun and it's exciting. But when you're forcing your user base to use that in order for them to gain a higher score, it just puts a bad taste in your mouth. And that's kind of unfun. When you're literally blocking, there's a setting in the portal activity that literally blocks you from using any other gear, and even exotics. So say you got this awesome build that uses an exotic that's not on the quote-unquote new gear list, the whatever they call it, not flare. Let me pull up collections. When you go into exotics, the featured gear list. If I go in here, these are the exotics that I have access to. However, these are the exotics that are quote-unquote on the featured gear list. So if I have a build for my Titan that I absolutely love, say I'm using the exotic class item because I love prismatic, I enjoy building that, I can even make use of some of the new weapons, I won't be able to use that with that particular enhancement in the portal activity. It makes it so that I literally can't run that activity. I have to have a whole new build. And that brings me to my next point. The unstable core, which is needed for upgrading your gear so that you can get higher light level. The economy for that is atrocious. If for whatever reason you decide, hey, I've got this build, I'm going about it, I'm doing awesome, and I want to kind of change it up, which I actually did in my grind. I went from an initial fire build with Tommy's matchbook, and I had, I can't think of the shoulders off the top of my head. I don't even know if I have them. I was using Pyrogale. I was going through, and I was killing things, and I was doing alright. However, as I started to get higher up, I started to realize that, the synergy between the builds wasn't the greatest. And so I decided, okay, I am going to look out there, and I decided that there was a build that Maven had put out about the grenade Titan, and I was like, that looks so cool. That looks fun. I enjoy grenade builds. I'm gonna do that build. So I spent the cores to upgrade all of the necessary stuff in that build. Unfortunately, what I found out is when you start getting into some of that harder content, I literally could not use that build in that harder content. It was blocking me from using that build. And that just felt bad. I'm like, what? It's a solar build. It goes with the artifact. Why would I not, And it's simply because that exotic that I was using, which is the Ashen Wake, is not an exotic that is on their list of featured exotics. And so it doesn't make sense to me as to why they would choose to do something like that. And as I'm grinding up and I'm going through this, I'm 384. There are certain activities that were ridiculously difficult when I was lower level. And then as I'm grinding up, even doing the mythic weekly missions, I'm seeing that it seems to be easier. Now, on those weekly missions, if you look at them here, it says that I'm going to be negative 50. Where's it at? Or I thought it was 50. It's 30. Anyway. Oh, that's Fabled, that's why. You look at the modifier, and it's negative 50. and it seems to be easier the higher level that I seem to be grinding, which nobody's talked about. And it seems to be a scaling that just doesn't, it's not there, but it's there, which makes me not trust the system even more. And so between all of those things, the unstable core economy, when you go through and you disenchant an item, like right now I'm at 15,000. That's absolutely nothing. That's maybe 2 pieces of gear. So if I decide that I want to go in, start playing my Warlock, and I want to start playing my Warlock at level, I'm going to have to infuse all of the gear that I've got, and I'm going to very quickly run out of unstable cores. And heaven forbid the build that I have isn't meta, or turns out that the build is great in low-level content for fireteam play, but as soon as I start getting into the Grandmaster difficulty, it sucks, and I have to remake my build. Well, now I've got to get more unstable cores, but I've got to grind to try and get gear to disenchant in order for me to get enough unstable cores to use another build that hopefully works, that's within their system boundaries of having, the featured gear used. Weapons is not, well, I mean, even weapons. If I want to use an exotic weapon that's not on this list, well, I'm sorry, you can't. If I want to use sweet business, well, that ain't gonna happen, buddy. It's not on the featured gear list. And I think that's they need to remove that modifier from the play list, as a stepping point. They need to remove the fact that if I want to get an A tier on, when I'm doing the various different grind, here I am 386. Now I have to go and modify this even more, add something new. All of these are great. Absolutely love them. It just doesn't feel good when you get into an activity and avant-garde is there. You go into, in fact, let's take a look at it now. I go into the seasonal hub, and I go into the conquest, which, don't get me started on the fact that these are once a frickin' season. Like, seriously? Come on, Bungie. I should be able to do these over and over again. They're difficult. The inverted spire was a mother. So was, actually, I think Conduit Solo was even more difficult because of the stupid modifier that they have. Where's it at? This one. That's retarded. That is absolutely the dumbest modifier for a solo player I have ever played with. For those of you that don't know, if you get down to 1/3 of your HP, you're not dead, but with this modifier in solo content, you're dead. Because it turns you into a bomb. And sure, it says your allies can defuse you, but if you're running this solo, you don't have allies. So the only way, and you can't use any abilities. So if you throw a healing grenade or anything like that, after that volatile shield trade-off procs, you don't have access to do anything other than walk. And so fortunately, I was doing this with a solar build, so I could pop my super, which would then heal me. Or if there were any fire sprites around, though I had it set up so that fire sprites would heal me, that would pop me out of this. But I had to specifically build around this particular mechanic. I did not enjoy that. Anyway, off on a tangent. The casual players are going to get left behind with this grind system. I honestly do not see many people grinding. You might get to 400 because the master, quick play is got matchmaking, and people can carry you enough so that your gear will slowly get up to 400. But I don't see people getting past that. I don't see very many casuals getting tier 5 loot very often, if at all, and definitely not fully infused tier 5 optimal gear sets. It's just... This system feels bad. And on top of all of this, we get down to December and everything gets reset. Now, granted, we're getting to keep the tier 5 armor, so we get the stats that come along with, the tier 5 gear, but the level is now reset. And I fully anticipate if they don't act quickly, two things are going to happen. They're going to lose a lot of players because the system feels bad. It's not rewarding. The content that they've already paid for in other expansions is now gone, null and void. People are just going to leave. They're not going to do the grind, in which, is what Bungie is wanting people to do. They want you to do the grind. And I don't mind doing the grind, but make it rewarding. Make it fun. Make it interesting. Add activities to the portal so that I'm not stuck doing the same thing over and over again. Make it so that if I do a dungeon, I'm actually getting gear that rewards me. Even if I don't use the gear because for whatever reason it's not in the new system or whatnot, at least it's leveling me up. At this point, I don't even get leveled up. Just making it feel horrible. And so they're going to lose that player base, and it's not going to be worth it to a lot of people. They're going to look at that and go, I'm good. I'm going to pass. We all talk about Borderlands coming out in September. I guarantee you that if Borderlands rocks it and the game looks... I already like Borderlands, but if Borderlands does a great job, they're going to lose a ton of people to that game. This feels like a self-sabotaging. They can't seem to get ahead. It's been one mistake after another, but that's for another thing. Let me know what you guys think. I love Destiny. I love playing Destiny. If they do nothing with this grind, if they keep it the same, I'll play it. I spent the $100 for the, for the expansion and all of the content for the year and whatnot. So I'll use it. And it's, I'm getting my money's worth out of it. It's just unfortunate that I feel like Bungie is losing people when they don't have to. So let me know in the comments below. Until next time, Guardians. Thanks.